Good morning, and we are in section 70, and we are continuing with this idea of stewardship. Now, yesterday I think I kind of went on a tangent a little bit, didn't quite mesh up some of the things, because the stewardship that was talked about here was about getting the Book of Commandments ready and printed. And then the Lord wants to teach more about the idea of stewardship in the church. So we're going to start on 9, even though we've done it. Behold, this is what the Lord requires of every man in his stewardship, even as I, the Lord, have appointed, or shall hereafter appoint unto any man. Behold, none are exempt from this law who belong to the church of the living God. So he's saying this is not, there's no exemption. And the way that they were living it then, where people would put in their pretty much everything and get back a certain amount according to what they needed and wanted and things like that. It still applies, I think, today in our lives, that we should be doing things. We work, we go to church and things like that. We consecrate our time and our talents and things. We still earn money, but do we can then have that stewardship, how we spend that money, what we do with it. It doesn't mean that we give it all to the church, as much as we just live in a way that the Lord would have us live, and always look to see what we can do to build His kingdom up. And a lot of that can be being quite successful in whatever we're doing. And now he explains that none are exempt who belong to the church of the living God, neither bishop, neither agent who keepeth the Lord's storehouse, neither he who is appointed in a stewardship over temporal things. First of all, he's pointing out that the bishop and the agent, we don't really call people agents now in the church, but the bishop and maybe his ward clerk or whatever, they need to have that stewardship, that responsibility in the ward. And anybody that's got a responsibility for those things over the temporal things. Now, yesterday, I'm pretty sure, with some of my ranting, I went on and started talking about theological. I think what I meant was temporal things. So I kind of would, at that point, was just talking. I haven't re-listened to it, so hopefully it made sense, but I think I meant temporal things, and I put telestial in there instead. But like I say, with these little podcasts, I hope they're not too dry. I hope you guys get something from it, but sometimes I don't. It's uncut. I do them. Once in a while I'll have to redo them if I get too off topic, or if some of the tech doesn't work or whatever. But mostly it's just what I'm saying at the time, no big script, pretty much what's on the screen. So anyway, so so who's appointed in temporal things over temporal things, things that the bishop often does that with the tithing and with the fast offerings and things. He has this appointment, and they have very good checks and balances nowadays as well for this, so that the stewardship is well looked after. He who is appointed to administer spiritual things, the same is worthy of his hire, even as those who are appointed a stewardship over temporal things. So, I think basically what he's trying to explain here is, and I'm thinking back in 1831, what they're going through, what they needed, and what he's basically saying in that time, people were getting reimbursed, you might say, for the time that they spend. So that let's look at Edward Partridge, for instance, first bishop. He had a huge responsibility to find land, to get people settled, to get to do, keep the records as people came in, and just all this stuff piling on, and keeping track of the money coming in and going out. All this he had to do, and he was commanded to take care of his own self as well, and to have some money set apart for himself and his family, so that he didn't, have to go and do other things. Now that's sort of the temporal side of things with the bishop, but he's basically saying, those that are appointed to administer spiritual things, sometimes they have to be looked after. Now, this isn't talking about priestcrafts that are there to get gain, but to look after each other and make sure that those that are spending time in spiritual matters is looked after when they can't, when they're not getting paid. Basically, they're not getting paid per head for how many people they preach to. That's not how it works either. But sometimes if it's more than a part-time assignment or something, missionaries, for instance, do often pay for all of their expenses, but most of the ones I knew, it was family and friends and ward members who are helping pay for them. And I have no qualms in putting into the missionary fund in our ward to help those missionaries. And I was grateful for all the ward members that helped me when I was on my mission, because we're not, for 2 years, we're not making any money. And as young teenagers and 20-somethings, there's not really a lot of time and ability to save and make it possible for every single 18, 19, 20-year-old men and women to be able to just pay for everything that they have for those 2 years. And I think this is where that this comes in. So let's read it in that sense. He who is appointed to administer spiritual things, the same is worthy of his hire, even as those who are appointed stewardship to administer temporal things. And if we take it in sense today, even though we don't well, if you think we are commanded and appointed to get a career, get a job, do those things, and those are our temporal things. So we will be blessed for that. And now, I'm trying to put all this together into words. Well, let's read on a little bit. Yea, even more abundantly, which abundance is multiplied unto them through the manifestations of the Spirit. So he's saying, those that do the work spiritually, I kind of like to think temporal as well, but he's definitely talking here about the person who is appointed to administer things spiritually have not only the abundance of temporal things, but of manifestations of the Spirit. Nevertheless, in your temporal things you shall be equal, and this is not grudgingly. Otherwise, the abundance of manifestations of the Spirit will be withheld. So some people, I think of this, I'm thinking both temporal and spiritual here. When you give things like fast offerings and tithing and that, do we do it grudgingly? If we do, then we're going to miss out on the spiritual benefits. But if we're doing it with a cheerful heart and with a desire to serve God, then we fill of His Spirit. Really, that's how it is. I must admit, there's very few people I've seen in the church that do things grudgingly, but I have seen it. And when this happens, they don't really have the Spirit very much. It's really hard, and they can say, well, it's just not helping me or something like that. I don't know what they'd say, but when they do it with full purpose of heart, whether it's spiritual or temporal in nature, then the Spirit is there and they feel the manifestations of the Spirit. I've just seen that in my own life. So anyway, now this commandment I give unto my servants for their benefit while they remain, for the manifestation of my blessings upon their heads, for a reward of their diligence, and for their security, for food and for raiment, for inheritance, for houses and for lands. In whatsoever circumstance I, the Lord, shall place them, and whithersoever I, the Lord, shall send them. For they have been faithful over many things, and have done well, inasmuch as they have not sinned. Behold, I, the Lord, am merciful, and will bless them, and they shall enter into the joy of these things. Even so, amen. What a beautiful way to end it, that understanding that the Lord is there to help look after us. And pointing out, for they have been faithful unto many things. And then saying that the Lord will be merciful and will bless us as we do these things and be faithful to Him. And I hope you can find that mercy in your life today, and also feel that joy. It is a repeated topic, that's joy. And I hope you can do that in your own stewardship, in your own life. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.